refreshing day yesterday. Mine was very full, so I wanted to give you just a little snapshot or a short video of my experience at this laboratory, virtual reality laboratory. It was a Saturday, so the 100 researchers who are normally there were not, but the founder of the laboratory, Mahamudra, who founded it back in 1991, he's my friend and host, so he brought me in, and then he had two of his colleagues there, and we went directly to what they call the cave. And it's not a cave. It's right in the middle of this extremely high-tech laboratory. But the cave is maybe 5 meters by 5 meters, maybe 4, maybe something like that. A room with 3 walls, and so you come in where there's no wall, and there's no ceiling, but there are a lot of projectors up there. And Mahamudra and I both came in there. We had to put on little coverings over our shoes. And then just putting on the type of glasses you put on when you go to a 3D movie, very low-tech, very ordinary, just 3D. Then they turned on all the projectors. And we went they ran one program after another, where you're looking around, and I can see Mahamudra, he can see me, but we're in this entirely different environment. And then we're being moved 3D through the environment. Like, I won't give all the details because it would take up a lot of time. But just one of them was, they made a computer generation of a region of Livorno that had been heavily bombed during the war, because Livorno was a major naval port. So when the Allies wiped out the naval port, they hit a lot of the city as well, unfortunately. So, but they were able to reconstruct parts of the city with computers that had been destroyed in the war. And so I flew over part of the city. We went around, it was like being kind of like a hummingbird. But you can't see yourself, of course. And so we went from one scene to another. We did that for a long while. That was very interesting, rather realistic, although you can see they became like the first Mac computers, like they were really cool at the time, and now they look like they were made by Neanderthals. This is the Neanderthal entry of virtual reality. But this is really cutting edge, as the early laptops and so forth, cutting edge. And then we stopped doing that, and then he gave me a very high-tech set of goggles. So now the environment is irrelevant, because the environment is created entirely by the goggles. And he also gave me a little hard hat if I wanted to be more interactive. And then we went through different scenes as well, but then I was on my own. But I could be interacting, so I'd see a 3D environment. And they gave me 2 little tools to hold my hand, which I would see my hands in virtual reality, and then I would engage with interactively with items within the environment. So that went on for maybe half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, where I was constantly in multiple virtual realities, and of course knew that I was. Why I say that is because we're all in virtual reality and we don't necessarily know it. But I'll tell you, the experience, the most remarkable experience I had in the laboratory, and we had hours of wonderful conversation, was when I took the goggles off. And I'm not joking. When I took the goggles off, and then I was engaging with Mahamudra and his two fine colleagues, it was a very intense experience of virtual reality. It really was. It was kind of like, yeah. Everything Atisha said, everything mentioned, yeah. I knew it before. I've been doing this practice a lot, but whoa, this is what it's like. It was very intense, just feeling that everything is just occurring in the space of the mind. At the same time, there was no nihilism. There was no flattening of people to mere appearances. I mean, this is Mahamudra. I've known her for years, So, and these 2 other gentlemen, seem like very fine, very open. So, but the opening phrase from the 7-point mind training, when starting the teachings on ultimate bodhicitta, view phenomena as if a dream, boy, was that easy. After being in an actual virtual reality for 30 minutes, taking them off, like, I don't have to try. This is just, yeah. And then after a teacher goes through the ultimate Buddhist teachings on what to do in meditation, then as you recall, you should recall, then Tzong you make between sessions act as if you were an illusory being. Act as if you were a character in, a figure in virtual reality. Because I was in a machine shop, and anybody who knows me, this is like hilarious. Because, there's Neanderthals, 5-year-olds, and then the people who know engineering. I am right there, between Neanderthal and 5-year-old, in terms of my mechanical ability and skill and natural giftedness. Like, how do you turn this cell phone on? I forget, it's not working, it's broken. My cell phone is not working. It's kind of like, that's where I am. And so here I was fixing this complex machine. And he invited me actually to put one box, and then it blew up. He actually encouraged me to do that. It blew up, and I looked down at my virtual hands, and they were singed. So this is why, and they actually sold this software to a company so that they would be able to learn how to fix these complex machines and show them if they did it wrong, then they would have an explosion and they would be, blow themselves up. But it's much nicer to do that in virtual reality rather than, the contrary. So, and then I can just say, just to summarize, about 5 hours of conversation, 6 hours. Enormous interest and openness, not only among Massimo, who's a Tibetan Buddhist and we're old friends, but among these two colleagues, and one of them a neuroscientist. He was Andrea, and then I think it was Giuseppe. He was running all the programs in virtual reality. He seemed very, very nice, but I didn't really get a chance to speak with him. But I did have a chance to speak with Andrea, who's one of the researchers in the laboratory, and his area is EEG, neuroscience, and looking at consciousness deficit or deficit problems, Alzheimer's and so forth. So that they're really trying to make their research practical to help people in a myriad of ways. It's not just very esoteric stuff. But we spoke at length about the possibility of doing research here at the Castellina Marittima property. We'll very likely be doing research together next year in the spring retreat taking place right here. That'll be basically in May of next year. They're very keen to do that. Very keen for long-term collaboration. And then with this fellow Andrea, who I corresponded with about a year ago, but never met him, then I was just speaking with Massimo and him, and I was just telling them, I turned to Andrea especially and said, Andrea, I'm not asking you to believe what I'm about to say, but I'll tell you I believe what I'm about to say. And I told him about this yogi in the south of Bhutan, who is very accomplished in samadhi and can generate virtual reality leopard and deer with his mind that other people can see. And he's... and I said, I'm asking you to believe it. I'm saying this, having been involved in Tibetan Buddhism for 45 years. It's earned my trust. But I said, the thing is, it's either true or false. It's not like ridiculous or amazing. It's just true or false. And if it's true or false, then perhaps I could work with the Lama, who told me of this, and we could bring a team of scientists there and study it. If they're willing to show it to Tibetans, why not to Westerners? So that was the day. It was very interesting, and then it was also, I could see this is really early stages, because when I had this very complex big set of goggles, looked like a zombie on my head, I had an umbilical cord, a big thick electrical cord going back to the machine, and so I couldn't go very far because I'd feel it's kind of pulling it back in my neck, and I thought, well, obviously that has to go. You want to be able to move much more freely. But then I had a glimpse into the future. I mean, can't say how many, because I'm not a futurist, I don't have any clairvoyance, but maybe it's 10, maybe 20, 30 years ahead. But I brought something with me. That imagine this kind of goggle set of the future that is now, like what a cell phone is compared to the computers back in the 60s. This is more powerful than any of them, right? Here's a set of goggles of the future. And also we know how technology has gotten better and better and better and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, right? So I'm going to show you a pair of goggles that is state-of-the-art, maybe 30 years from now, and really inexpensive. And what you can see with these goggles on is unbelievable. I'm serious. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking. I mean, 3D, extremely vivid, virtual reality that you can repeat again and again. You can manipulate it. You can also tap into the substrate while running. And they cost only $15. And I reached into the future and plucked one out and brought it back. And here it is. You ready? You're ready? Here I go. Woo! It comes with an accessory. And the accessory is free. It's called the human mind. And so there we are. That was fun. And all of this, I've been trying to weave all the way through it, and I'm not going to start going into kind of a lot of citations. But it is important that we thoroughly integrate the whole notion of wisdom and method, the integration of the two. And so we have all of this is the wisdom side, right? It's about developing shamatha and then exploring the nature of the mind, nature of reality, and to which the mind is related. But all of it, and then seeing this virtual reality, seeing that all the people up here was so intense when I took those goggles off, and having this enjoyable conversation with these three individuals, that it was kind of like, it was almost giving me vertigo. Like, oh, this is really virtual. And I didn't say anything, I didn't act weird or anything, but this is really intense. And seeing so vividly that all the appearances I had of these people I was speaking with were all arising in the space of my mind, and they were not out there, they're just appearances. And of course, what makes this not solipsistic, and not nihilistic, not wildly egocentric, is the very clear perception, or awareness, that they have their own perspectives, and all the appearances of me are arising in their minds. And yet here we are, each of us within our environment, and yet interconnected and influencing each other. And none of us real, all of us consisting of and seeing empty appearances. But as in a dream, as in virtual reality, we're clearly influencing each other. So relating this now to the fourth of the four measures, because it's not a stretch. It really kind of fits very smoothly. What I like